to the Power Relay with Micah Clay. A series of conversations with the technicians, leaders, engineers, and innovators critical to ensuring power reliability, safety, education, and innovation. We discuss the many facets of the power industry with the unsung heroes who power the world in the 21st century. Sponsored by Southern Staffing Group. We support your power industry talent acquisition efforts. If it involves power, we have you covered. Plug in and join our host, Micah Clay, veteran, entrepreneur, and power enthusiast, as we delve into the world of power.
Joining us today are two of our most viewed guests, and we are bringing them together to discuss workforce development in 2025. Tom Wire is a NETA IV, NICET III, who started in the industry via his time in Army Prime Power. In addition to his role in workforce development with RESA Power, Tom is always putting out great educational content and furthering the industry. Thomas Sandri, and he goes by Tom, but since we have two Toms, we're going to refer to Tom Sandri as Thomas Sandri today, is a staple in the industry as well, having held a variety of technical positions prior to assuming his role as Director of Workforce Development for Vector Power. I can think of no two people better to have this discussion than Tom squared. It was a blast getting to see both of you in person at Power Test this year. Tom Wire, tell everyone a bit about what you've been up to lately and give us your take on the current state of workforce development.
So at RESA, we've just been building out our training department. We've recoined it as OpEx. We'll see how that goes. It's definitely enlightening to see the different. We have so many different offices across, and some of them are they do transformer services and they don't go out to the field. Some go out to the field, some do shop only work, and then they've got a multitude of experience across those. So it's a delightful challenge to try to tackle that as far as bringing everyone up to speed. In the industry, though, I mean, that's part of the reason why I like to do a lot of my videos is try to help out as much as I can and better the industry as a whole, because a lot of people nowadays are moving away from wanting to read books, and things like that. So if they can watch a 60-second clip, which I'm trying to do my best to shorten some of mine, I might remake some of mine and shorten them. But that's I think that the industry as a whole, we've gotten away from doing the books and the theory training, and we need to dive back into that, because now I personally think that the last great resource that most trades have for training is like military training, because the military is the only one now that thoroughly invests and will train you from a high school education straight into performing your job as a full career. And it's the only one really that'll do that. And apprenticeship programs are great too, but they're not as prevalent as programs like the militaries are. So that's my kind of thoughts on it. What do you think?
I would definitely say, from what I'm seeing from the recruiting perspective, we're seeing an uptick in the workforce development trend with a lot more efforts. Again, talking with you and talking with Thomas about this kind of stuff and seeing the other efforts in the workforce, we're definitely seeing more efforts being put into developing the workforce. And I think it's mainly a supply and demand issue. There's simply too much work and not enough technicians. And so how do you fix it? You either grow them organically, or we play the game that recruiters are famous for, and that's poach your talent, right? And so that's only tenable for so long. I think the pay rates start going up to where it starts eating into the margins pretty substantially. And that's kind of the where we're sitting right now in the current, I think we're starting to see the pay bands are starting to kind of level off a little bit, but we're all still seeing the massive migration of talent from company to company. And I don't think that changes unless we solve the workforce development problem. Yeah. Thomas, what are you seeing out in the realm and world of workforce right now?
It's rather interesting because I've been involved with workforce development now many a year, and this is actually now I say my third significant ordeal where revamping or modifying approach to corporate level training. Each time is a little bit of a learning curve. Each time is a little bit of adaptation to the culture of the company as well. But just to touch base on Tom's point, and I think he really nailed with today's generation, it is a different approach. Again, I kind of go back to my days of learning, and a lot of it was reading assignments. You went to a thing called a library. You got resource material, reference material. You looked this stuff up. In some cases, you approached the manufacturer, asked them to mail you a copy of their manual, and you read it from cover to cover. And it's kind of interesting because, Tom also mentioned about, his influencer life as whether it be on LinkedIn or on YouTube. And by the way, Tom, really good content. I love your little 60-second segments and everything. But I started using the YouTube platform years and years ago, not because I necessarily wanted to be an influencer, not because I wanted to go ahead and get monetized so that I can afford those chicken nuggets at McDonald's, which maybe someday I might actually get enough viewers that I could get those chicken nuggets. But what I learned very quickly with a lot of our younger staff was, in trainings and everything, where I would ask like questions like, where do you go to get information? YouTube. So I kind of got to the point where, if this is how I need to reach you, and get that content in your hands, then that's a platform I'm going to use. And, we're seeing it a lot evolving between virtual classrooms, styles like we're doing right here, except on a bigger scale, e-learning, self-paced courses, YouTube influence, and so forth. There is a fancy term for the new generation as it relates to technology. I just call them the computer kids.
Tech savvy.
Like, just because I went ahead and got my son to teach me how to program that VCR, you be respectful, young man.
Freaking I'm Wire.
Man, they don't even know what a VCR is anymore.
Well, and I think it's really good because we do get a little bit of a spread, right? So Tom Wire's a little bit younger, Thomas a little bit older than I am, and I'm right in the middle of you old geezers. So it kind of plays out well to that aspect. But to your point, I'm definitely seeing a lot more of the micro learning. And Thomas, I know that you and I talked about that at nauseam in our last one, but I think it's still even becoming more relevant now because of the attention deficit disorder of society, if you will, right? So it almost seems like it has to be in these micro chunks. And like we put out the content as well as typically 7 to 8 minutes. I oftentimes don't see that perform as good as the 30-second to 60-second, even though the subject matter is still very relevant to the topic and things like that. So maybe I need to start breaking it into smaller chunks to that. And that kind of touches on some of the workforce stuff, but I kind of want to keep this thing in a sequence flow. So Thomas, you mentioned a culture aspect to it, and I kind of want to start the conversation off around the culture from both the leadership side and the candidate side and how it ties into workforce development. And Tom Wire, I will go ahead and let you kind of kick that off if that makes sense. So obviously we're dealing with anytime you're doing training, it's a cost center, right? You're either going to have to fly somebody out or do something like that. And obviously that has to be managed in the overall big picture of CapEx and margin maintenance and all those other things to make sure. What are you guys seeing to kind of address those culture shortfalls and changing that paradigm a little bit?
I would say so it's gonna really boil down to the leadership. Because and I'll say why. You might think that employees have to have the mindset. But, most employees, and I learned this back in the day from a coworker, most employees don't come to work every day to find out how to do their own thing at the company or to screw someone over, right? Most are pretty content at doing what their boss tells them. Now, what we did when I was working with CBS is we ended up saying, hey, let's just do 1 day a month. 1 day a month, we're all going to sit down in the shop. And what we're going to do is we're going to do like an admin thing in the morning. And then all afternoon is a training session, right? And, we had the initial shutter shock during the first one. And everyone was like, so you kind of have to set your paces. But after they get used to saying, hey, this is going to be a normal. So 2 months goes by, we do twice. 3 months goes by, we did 3 of these now. Now they're like, okay, so now what's our topic next month? Because I want to kind of like prepare for it, I want to come in, maybe ask a couple questions of things I've seen out in the field, and then I can be more prepared. So that's why I say it's a management perspective. They have to really set the tone and the tempo for that. And then, the employees generally will follow suit because most employees want to do good for their employer. I mean, they want to be good at their job. They want to get pay raises. They want to advance in their career. And so they'll follow suit genuinely for the most part, but you got to sit there and set the tone for them, get past that initial shutter shock. And then you can start to really get down into the weeds and have some investment in it. And I have another comment to bring onto it, but I think it sticks more on the pay side of it, and I'll save it for later and everything. But
no, you mentioned kind of the shock of it and getting over that initial hurdle. So obviously there's going to be a changed perspective that comes to this. And in the world of it, we call it change management. It's literally an actual course of study that people can go to school for. How long did it take for that to kind of take hold, right? So you're going to get inevitably going to get some pushback, right? It's a change in the way we've always done business. And a lot of that is mindset driven. Was there anything that you had to kind of be forward thinking of to overcome some of those obstacles and getting buy-in?
As with all things, if you want to be successful, be prepared. So what I did was I structured the day. And I structured the entire day to make sure that I left a little bit of slack in there, because you always have to have some gray area. Some areas might run over, some might go short, fine, whatever. Throw in a team lunch. Throw in some building things, employees start to look forward to this day. And it becomes very advantageous for everyone. I mean, you would be surprised the things that we kind of identified. I mean, we found out that we had schedule conflicts 3 months in advance because of this. There was a lot of things that became very beneficial from these types of meetings. And then the whole afternoon was just training, which is, on our own equipment in our own shop. So it's not like I send them to Megger and they go run someone else's equipment that they're not going to see for another 5 years because we don't have the money to procure one, right? We're only training on the equipment that we have in the shop. So in an environment that we can control. So.
And I would say that's also a pretty salient part of that is relevancy to whom you're delivering your training to.
Yeah.
So if I've got a guy that's a breaker technician that's not going to be testing relays, do you think he really is going to care about it at that moment, about the relays, vice what he's doing for breakers at that moment and what it benefits him?
Only as much as you make him.
Yeah. Well, and so it's carrot and stick equation. So you said only as much as you make. What are some of those tools in your tool bag to make them? Are you monitoring their performance on the backside of that, or what does that look like?
I've learned throughout being a trainer that you can't just go full bore straight in and say, hey, here's the theory behind it. Because most people just sit there and they kind of like, whatever, right? And they're not really invested in it. So you have to really, like you said, carrot and stick, get them invested in it first. So say, hey, look, we're going to talk about capacitive reactance. And they're going to be like, what, right? And so then I say, look, this is how it's helped me in the past. Yeah. I went up to some medium voltage bus. We kept tripping on our AC high pot. I measured the capacitance, the resistance. I calculated what the total power requirement was at 27 kV. And I told my boss, we need a bigger high pot. This is how much juice we need. Let's get that in here. And then we ran it, no issues. Never had to break bus anymore. And I said, this can be a benefit to your company and your team if you know when and how to use it. And so get them invested in the training and then start delivering on the training. Because then they're like, okay, now I see how this matters, right? I think that's one of the biggest things to do.
I like that. And now, Thomas, so we kind of talked about the cost center aspects of training and how we address that stuff. And I think Tom Lahr was right on the mark. You have to have the buy-in, has to be a relevant topic. what are some of those things from, because obviously you're sitting up at the C-suite and you get a bird's eye view, if you will, of balancing the cost of training by production. So how do you balance that?
That's always, one of the biggest challenges, because I remember back, before getting into the service company side of things, or NETA accredited company side of things, where I worked for Megger and had done some trainings and everything with the AVO Training Institute, which most people are very familiar with. And obviously, it was a very different atmosphere and everything there. I mean, people are lining up. They're paying you to come to your door to come in and take your classes and so forth. And, a lot of my understanding of training and how you build programs and training and everything was to accommodate this type of environment. Now, back in those days, we were starting to get hit up with a little bit of the cost of travel, to be able to send somebody a week out of the office, per diems, flights, hotels, the whole 9 yards. But we were still way pre-COVID and everything. And I mean, only us real renegades were playing around with that intranet thing, and doing virtual stuff with it. It really wasn't mainstream. I think COVID really helped accelerate a lot of that concept. But when I first took my first position as a training manager for a NETA accredited company, the walls of reality really started to come crashing in, because I'm used to the little more old school sage on the stage. People come into the classroom, there's that great interaction, camaraderie, live discussions and so forth. And now all of a sudden from the cost center, well, those are not billable hours. We need so many billable hours. I mean, payroll's got to be able to flow, et cetera, et cetera. But I've already been kind of involved, early adopter into YouTube and creating videos and stuff like that. So I started laying out a program with more of the e-learning approach to, and the way, and here's where getting the corporation in your buy-in, but also getting their understanding of the tools. So I'm saying we use the e-learning and so forth as a means of transferring information out there, giving them assignments, having them work within their schedules in order to earn their classroom time. So when we do bring them into the classroom, one, the classroom is balanced. We don't have the guys with huge experience, the guys that don't even know how to ask a question because they're so new to the subject matter. We level that a little bit with the e-learning and so forth. So, and then post classroom, you want to protect that investment because you just spent a lot of money. And I think somebody alluded to this, so you took that information, you learned it, and you don't do anything with it for like 30 days or whatever. You forgot 80% of what you just learned. Mm-hmm. So I kind of look at it as the e-learning as the two loaves of bread with the substance and the hardiness in the middle. That's the classroom and the hands-on training. Well, it's interesting, when you're trying to get the corporate level buy-in and everything, because, it's like radio dials on the ear. They heard no travel, no cost, no per diem, transfer this information. All of a sudden, a lot of that white noise generator went amplified when we got to the middle section about earn your way into the classroom, take them out of the field on the job training. And then they reheard again, for the back end. Oh, and now we could do it this e-learning approach. So getting the message clear that, it's not a one size fits all, but there's different avenues to approach the training, and they all have an area of importance into getting that knowledge out there, sustaining that knowledge that's out there. And kind of going back into that culture, this was also the big aspect of all of it, was getting the buy-in culture at the top, that this was a program that they felt comfortable with and were going to support. But then the mid-level was critical, because I remember early attempts, the message and everything to the mid-level, you were still hammering production. So me as the production manager, everything that you're talking about in training is now in conflict to me. So how do I get that person to buy into it? So once it was written into like company policy, and part of the production manager's evaluation yearly was, okay, how did we do on P&L, on the jobs and the management and so forth? But as part of that, how did you do on your responsibility to company policy and making sure that, ample training hours were distributed and you got that part done? Once we got that mid-level buy-in, things started to click and fall into place, because now we had a top-down flow. The project managers were not sourballing it by saying, "Oh, for God's sakes, Tom, would you just take that stupid training class and get that training department off my back? I know it's a waste of time, but go and get that done for me, would you, pal?" Now, if that's the way your boss is communicating to you, do you see value in the training? Do you see it as worth your time and effort? No. But when they start endorsing and saying, "Hey, this is owed to you," so now we sell it to the staff as, "This is owed to you. You deserve this. You're owed this education." So now we kind of have a ground up, top down push. So during yearly evaluations, employees are coming back to the table saying, "Well, you let me down. You owed me this amount of training. I didn't get it." We have top down. "Hey, you let the employees down. You didn't get this training worked into the schedules." So there's kind of, again, that meeting in the middle where everybody is seeing the importance and everything to it. And going back to the original, the cost structure, we're controlling the cost of the major investment where we bring them out of the field into classroom and so forth by padding the path into the classroom. You've done your assignments. You showed the willingness and everything. So you're going to get the first right of refusal to go in those classes. The guy that had the 3 months or 4 months to do the assignments didn't even bother getting around to it. Okay, if you're content with just being the apprentice on the job and everything, and that's how, okay, fine. But, I'm not going to invest money to send you into a classroom just for the instructor to babysit you. Yeah. You've got to show that you want to be in there as well. And then having the e-learning on the back end to kind of reinforce, because we forget things that, if we don't get to apply them on a regular basis. So that was kind of, how we kind of managed selling it to the C-levels, the cost aspect of it, and how we were going to control and protect those investments.
Well, and I think you bring up some very, very cool tools in the whole carrot and stick mantra of it. So go ahead, Tom. My bad.
I got to chime in here. All right. So this is not exactly off topic. It's not about the training. Okay. I want to talk about the workforce development side of it, because Tom mentioned something very, very peculiar there, right? So and Micah, this, when we're in the military, how often, and I believe you were an officer, how often do you do reviews? At least annually.
Yeah, depending on, right? So like, and it's funny that we're talking training, because that's one of those things in the military, like, the example that was given is like, "Hey man, you got to get this crap done." A lot of it wasn't incentivized from the bottom up like it is, unless it's for those stellar people. And now you get some of that whole, "Hey man, like, look, you're behind on your training. Where the F is your training? I got to get this done. I owe to traino next week, and you're behind." So that's big stick, not much in the way of carrot. Is that kind of what you saw in the Army as well?
Yeah, but that wasn't my main point that I was trying to drive, right? Was we think of it also as a tool, right? Like evaluations are not just for the employee; they're also for the manager. It's a tool for both, right? So, and this is really my point. In the military, the care, right? AT level 1 training, no one cares about. Let's be honest, right? And no one cares about all those online 5-minute videos and take a quick quiz and be done with it, right? But when it comes to like real training, like, "Hey, I want to go to aerosol school," right? Then people are like, "Oh yeah, that's some good stuff right there," right? So, and it's the same outside the military, right? People are like, "Oh, I got to do that virtual NFPA refresher course." Like, garbage or whatever, right? Let's just be honest. That's what people think, right?
Absolutely.
And then they're like, hey, I'm gonna go down to Texas. I'm gonna go to a mega course, right? And they're like, I'm so stoked for it, right? So, I mean, I'm just trying to compare apples to apples, you know. So, but the thing is leverage those other tools as a manager that you have, right? And as an employee, so that the evaluations, right? If you're doing annual evaluations, which most people don't do quarterly like the military does, right? Or monthly, but most people at least do annual evaluations. Use that. If you're sitting there just like, oh, the company requires us to do an evaluation, I've wrote your stuff in there, just sign it whenever you get a chance and move on. No, think about this, right? If the company's ever going to fire you based off of your performance criteria, right? That is something that you can use to leverage, right? Additionally, as a manager, if you have to fire an employee and you have it on paper saying, hey, I have tried to invest in this guy and it is not working, right? This is workforce development right here. So if once a year you're going to sit down and you're going to do a review of yourself, and your manager and you as a manager, or your manager is going to review you. I mean, you have once a year to put it in writing of what you think it really means. Invest more than 2 seconds, right? I mean, I would always spend at least 15 to 30 minutes per employee writing out their page.
Absolutely.
Paragraphs of stuff. And they're like, dude, I hate reading your books. I was like, look, that is your career, dude. Exactly. It is your career. That is me telling you where I think you are, what you could build on, and everything. And if you don't take that to heart, then it's your career. I can't make you eat that, right? Yep. But if you do take it to heart, this could be how you get there, right? And so workforce development, we have so many tools now that people just don't utilize.
Well, and I will say too, on Thomas's, and they're incentivizing the top down and the bottom down. Another thing that also often I think is underutilized is 360 performance reviews, right? So you're getting inputs from your juniors and your seniors. It's something that we use on the officer side whenever we're being evaluated for hours, and it's so you can get feedback, and it's done from not only your superiors, but your subordinates get a say as well. And that's their opportunity for them to come to the table and say, hey, I wasn't afforded the training, or hey, an emphasis wasn't placed on the training. And you can kind of flush out some of the bad players there as well. Not the entering argument's not that they're bad players, but it's just, to Tom's point, another tool in the toolbox. And then it's another performance base, right? We all want high performers in there. So if you have a really strong learning management system software, now you can actually incorporate that into those performance reviews and say, hey, based on here's your report of your training from the last 6 months to a year, here's where I held you. And this is kind of speaks to the point of an increased cadence of performance reviews. I always say at least a minimum of semi-annually and quarterly, if all possible. You start doing it on a monthly, it starts losing some of the impact. But at least on a semi-annual, that way at that 6 month mark, you have 6 months to fix yourself. You know what I'm saying from that aspect of it. But being able to, and that's the, I guess, kind of, I know it's kind of shifting into the learning management system, but kind of having a tool that will show that and be able to track that, so you can show them in black and white where you falling short, if that makes sense. And before we go ahead, Tom.
I just want to say, like, to managers out there, right? If you have a lot of guys under you and you do performance reviews, right? And you are sitting there saying, man, I wish my team were better. I wish that we had a more robust or whatever, right? And you're not using the tools or investing in them. I mean, point the finger at yourself.
Well, it's interesting when you do use the tools, you're not making assumptions of that employee's performance and so forth. You've got trackable records and everything of it. And even with like the on-the-job aspect of training, most LMSs also have ability to measure and track skills assessments. So one of the things that we started doing was tying in with our e-learning self-paced courses is, well, one, training the field supervisors and managers so they actually know what the technicians are learning, so we can keep consistency in the field. Of how we fill out our data reports, how we collect data, how we make hookups to the equipment, which are the preferred test leads to use for consistency and so forth. So we want to make sure that we transfer that over. But one of the items is we've got, for lack of better, I'll just say qualified electrical evaluators that were trained trainers now in the field. Oh, Tom just went ahead and took the power factor training course. So he was on a job site. Okay, you're going to run the Doble today, Tom, and you're going to kind of walk me through and talk me through what you're doing and everything. And now they can log in as a supervisor into the LMS and tag skill assessment proficiency, A, B, C, or D on it. So not only is it just a transfer knowledge to you and test you on your ability of retention of that knowledge, sort of like Trivial Pursuit game, but now we actually tie it into proficiency assessment.
It's like a knowledge spot check. And then before we kind of exit off on these are both great, and I kind of want to tie it all together and ask Tom the question. So we're dealing with economies of scale. Essentially, Vector is definitely a smaller organization than RESA Power is, right, as far as the footprint and everything goes. And so Thomas will have the benefit of not having to manage such a massive population of technicians and things. What are some of the unique constraints that come with? And I'll leave this to you, Tom Wire, on that point. I like everything that Thomas mentioned. It makes sense, and you can do that in economy of scale to 30 to 50 technicians. What if we're dealing with 1,000 technicians? What does it look like for you at RESA? Are they flying you out to site more or less, or are you guys doing the offsite mega stuff, or what does that workflow look like for you guys?
We're still working on building out that a little bit. They're changing things around a little bit, and like I said, recoining as OpEx versus a training department. And I would ideally imagine, and they've tossed around the idea of hiring a lot more trainers and having them all regional based. And then we would do some cross training as needed, but we could facilitate more in-house training that way, and also go out on jobs and certify people, kind of like Tom said, with verifying that they did the training. But we're also talking about, for example, OSHA says that you must be qualified. How about I pull out this SOP that we've built for every task and say, check, cannot do this one, check, can do this one, and then identify pitfalls and deficiencies across the company and figure out where to really hone in on the training. Yeah. So, there's ways to do that. It's just the thing is that is a huge beast to tackle, and it requires a lot of resources. And a big company like RESA, they have the investment opportunity to do that. Monetarily, they have the ability. It's just a matter of how do you hire that many well-trained people that are able to properly qualify and certify other people, and that want to sit in that kind of a job versus sit out in a field testing environment. In all honesty, I really like testing in the field too. I miss startup and commissioning jobs where we would sit there and do functional tech checks. So it's a big animal to tackle.
Well, and it is, and I know obviously, if it were solved already, then we wouldn't be having the shortfalls that we have in technicians and everything else. And then so is there an effort within RESA? Would that be? Do they incentivize folks that are coming from the field that have made themselves subject matter experts? Is there any incentivization or trying to grow them up internally to turn them into the train the trainer type people?
Not currently right now. Okay. No. But they're still trying to, as they're rebranding things in the company, they're still trying to figure out how certain pieces fit together. I think that's going to develop more in the coming months.
Gotcha. Awesome. And then, so we've already kind of talked about the, using the LMS and getting the material out there and kind of doing it, but to the point of you don't use it, you're going to lose it. Right. So, and there's a balance there between production and making sure that you're getting the hands-on out there and getting the OJT and all those pieces. So I'll turn it over to Thomas on this one and kind of start a smaller scale, then jump up to the RESA. But what are you doing to make sure that they don't lose that knowledge by making sure they get time on the tools and the reps and sets required to kind of remember and sustain that knowledge?
Well, that's definitely, an area where there's, and again, I do appreciate when you said, matter of scale. A company like Vector, where we're like maybe 120, 330 odd technicians versus 1,300. It is a different overall approach. But there's a couple items that we go ahead and do. One of the things that, again, we build into the LMS is assessment knowledge. So you might be assigned certain training you can test out by going through the assessment, and or it's going to flag different gap areas that, okay, let's just take, again, transformers. Man, you're really strong with all the electrical tests and everything on it. But when it comes to reviewing dissolved gas analysis reports or anything along this line, you're kind of weak on that. So now we've identified a gap area to round out your training and so forth. The other that we do for reinforcement and assessments and everything is right in the LMS, right on the main landing page and throughout all of the e-learning courses that you take. I've never been a believer in what gets referred to as throw it over the fence training. And a lot of times watching a video or watching a presentation type of thing is considered throw it over the fence training. You watched it. Nobody's really challenging you. Did you learn something from it? You answered the 5-6 questions on the test afterwards. Boom, you got a high score. You got a pat on the back and a cookie. Well, one of the things that we do is we have a calendar function that basically says schedule one-on-one with instructors. So when you assign the courses, if you're looking for guidance on how to level up on your NETA exams, for any reason whatsoever in your education and learning and career process, you can click meet on schedule a one-on-one. And now it gives me the ability to kind of talk to you, really vet out, did you retain the information? Are you interpreting things properly? Are you retaining? And it's unlimited access into the LMS. So again, to kind of, haven't touched it in 30 days or whatever, but I've got this big job coming back up again, and I've got to be the one running that power factor test set. You can go back in and access the material anytime you want. It's there to, and they all come with downloadable workbooks as well. So if you are old guy that reads, great, you can do the workbook. If you're the young guy that just wants to replay the video, great, works. You can schedule your one-on-one, ask some loaded questions and everything when you're out there in the field. And I have noticed, though, that the one-on-ones, you will get a lot of technicians that really will take you up on that, particularly when it comes to the leveling up and, oh, man, I'm about to go take my level 2 or I'm about to take my level 3. Can you point me in a direction? Where do I even, get my head wrapped around this or get started? The one-on-ones work pretty well there, but a lot of times on the courses, what I've actually started implementing kind of on a low scale, I've got to get my schedule and or get additional resources. But I'd like to go ahead and set some dates repetitive. I think Tom brought this up. Repetition, getting them into a schedule where they know this is available and they can plan their calendar on it. Beautifully said. I'd like to go ahead and get on the calendar where every month, certain topics, there's a team meeting link. If you're working on in this area, battery, circuit breakers, transformers, whatever, click in once a month. We're having an open forum discussion group on those topics. And that way also what I'm hoping to accomplish there is take advantage of some of the NETA 3s and 4s. It's not just you're going to be meeting with instructors, but it's a peer council, users group that once a month on those topics. If you have availability, link into it. And we just have an open forum discussion. So now we get the practical boots on the ground. We got the propeller head engineer, perfect utopia life of how it's supposed to work in theory. And, we all come together.
I really, really like that. And then,
go ahead, Tom. So I don't want to give away RESA's secret sauce or anything, right? But I will give away a little bit of our training schedule, right? So And the way that Tom had said some of that stuff, I think it was really good. And so the way I did things in the past with CBS with Moe's was that monthly iteration, like I said earlier. However, at RESA, what we do is so every month we'll do what we call a First Friday, and it's a 2-hour virtual webinar. And you can tune in, cool. If you can't tune in, it is what it is, right? It gets recorded, and then I develop test questions, and we try to create that into a NETA CTD course as well. So it's a way to, knock multiple birds out. And then additionally, we'll do a virtual once a quarter NETA 2, 3, and 4 prep. So each one gets 2 hours to sit down with me and say, hey, you're going to take your NETA exam this year. What do you want to talk about? I think you might want to focus on these topics. You want to talk about something else? Bring it up, right? We'll go over it. And so we've gotten a lot of good feedback. I wouldn't say that people are heavily invested in them. It does require manager support, obviously. But those two right there are really great because they're virtual and they're interactive, right? We'll also use, like Tom was saying, throw over the shoulder courses. We have a lot of courses that we use that are just recorded webinars, right? And they're on our LMS, and then they take an exam. They get their NETA CTDs out of it as needed, which is great too. And what I've done is I've gone the extra mile and said, hey, we've got a week. So I developed our intermediate protection course, and which is just relay testing, right? And so what I did was I was like, man, this is kind of like a mid-level course. I don't want to sit here and be like, Joe Schmo doesn't know anything and he's going to get sent to this course. So what I did was I made prerequisite courses, and I use our LMS to create prerequisites for that course. They have to complete 11 hours of prerequisite training before they're even allowed to go to the in-person course. And then that's all of the material, that's the majority of the course, right? So then we just sit there and do day one review. Everything that you thought you knew, what don't you know, right? And then it maximizes in-person training by putting the content in that format and structure. So just some things to point out, I think are really cool.
And to kind of take it back, so we've kind of talked about what an individual technicians on the company kind of doing that. When do you introduce them? Is it during the onboarding of a new technician or a new hire? Do they kind of get implemented into the workforce program at that point? Or do you give them 6 months on the job before they start getting follow-on training? Or what does that look like? How is that process managed from beginning, from onboarding into, the next certification?
Go ahead, Tom. I'll answer second.
Okay. We will try to tackle it right at the onboarding level when they're coming in. Now, part of, that is at what level are we bringing them in? So if we're bringing them in, let's say as a NETA level 1 or whatever, I will go ahead and assign them some base theory related courses and everything. But I'll try to reach out to them and say, okay, you're going to be taking some basic theory, or you're going to be learning about capacitors and inductors, reactive elements, and so forth. At first, it's going to be like, oh, come on, man, is this tech school all over again or whatever? But, I'll try to explain to them that there's a method to the madness, because have you ever used a megometer or a device like this? When you get out into the field, there's going to be things that over the next couple of days when, or weeks or months when you're out there in the field, I want to plant these seeds, and then I want you observing. And as you're using the equipment and you're doing different routines and everything, what is happening? For instance, dealing with capacitive elements, capacitive charging currents, polarization currents, and so forth. Once they plant that seed and then they've used the megometer and everything, I'll bring them back into, whether it's like in a session like this or whatever, I'll be like, all right, so what did you observe when you push that test button? What happened to the reading over the first minute or so? Oh, it started to increase in insulation resistance value. I said, yeah. Now, what was your observation of that? Insulation gets healthier the longer voltage is applied to it, or does it go deeper than that? And then we're like, that was that charging current that you were talking about and that polarization that you were talking about during that, my first week orientation type of thing. So we'll try to hit them early with some of the foundational, but then really rely on getting out there in the field so you see it in a real practical sense. When we talk about tan delta testing, and okay, we've got your charging current leads the resistive current by exactly 90 degrees. So if you have a mixture of the two, it brings your angle down and da 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 da. So, okay, if you start to see this, what type of contamination might be there that's pulling more dielectric losses or more losses to the circuit? What other components could be causing? So I like giving them a little bit of that front end theory to plant the seed and then go out there and observe. And here again, like some of the training courses, it's not a one-time playthrough. You play it through the first time as like a level 1, you get certain information. After you've been out in the field and you've done a little bit of this testing and you've observed a little bit, you play it a second time and then more lights are going on. You play it a third time and then it's like, voila, I got it. Now I can actually make recommendations on test results.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way we try to approach it, is installments, but planting the seed, letting it grow, planting the seed, letting it grow.
Is there a baseline assessment? So whenever you get an onboarding done and you're like, just to kind of get a general level of knowledge assessment, do y'all do anything like that to kind of establish a baseline for their training curriculum and syllabus moving forward?
Definitely working harder on that. Here again is building those assessment exams and everything. So when they come in, do a couple of these assessments. And again, it's sort of like a pre-test. Yeah. I don't care what you score. You're a winner anyway, because what I'm trying to do is flush out which direction to guide you. There's no sense, guiding you into courses that, based on the assessment, you might as well be teaching it, so I don't want to waste your time, but I do need to build out a lot more of those, and then just flush out where the opportunities and the gaps are. And again, sell the message, because how like a lot of people, oh my God, he wants me to take a test, I'm being judged. Yeah. No losers in this one. Everybody's a winner in this one. All we're trying to do is identify and point you in directions that are complement to you and not waste of your time.
It seems like it would just be a great way to kind of establish like what right looks like, and then to be able to build out like a specialized one-on-one training curriculum from that person based off that knowledge test. So do you guys have anything like that, Tom?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of touch on the assessment real quick. I thought it was neat. So from a different perspective, from like a course creation perspective, right? For the in-person courses, we have pre-assessments basically, and they don't have a passing score. You just take it, and we use them in a way almost to scare people. The reason is because like who's ever heard of guys that go to training and they're like, yeah, I got drunk, I got wasted every night, right? And they show up next morning, they're just a zombie, they're not learning anything. So we use it as almost like a tool, like, hey, this is what your final's going to look like. And then they literally grab their britches. You know what I mean? Our courses, we don't design them to be easy, right? We design them so that way people get something out of them. We do have a failure rate for our courses. Most of our courses is anywhere from 60 to 70% people pass, right? So that means 30 to 40% fail. Yeah. And they can retake them or whatever. There's that avenue to talk about too. But I just wanted to go on that. There's multiple different ways to structure these programs, is my point. And that was one way that I think has been really effective for us. Micah, to answer your question about like new hires, like if we're going to hire someone directly, we honestly, from a training department perspective, we don't do too much until we have manager involvement. So gotcha. The managers are the ones who determine their schedules and everything like that. So they're the ones who determine how much devotion these people can have to hours throughout their week time. So they're the ones who determine that. If they want help, they'll reach out and we'll say, hey, I would look at this. If they got a guy who's going to come on board and say he was at another company and he's, need a technician, they want to have him take his 2 or his 3, we'll get him turned into one of those webinars that we do quarterly, so that way he could show up hopefully for that. But as far as actual direct involvement, we don't have much. Now we do have a course I recommend all of our managers, every time we talk once a year, I sit down with all the managers, all the GMs across all the company once a year. And I recommend them, look, if you got anyone who's going to go for the NETA II test, I want them to take, this is our intro to substation testing, right? And I think this is a very valuable course for any of those guys. Unless they're an engineer, you're just wasting their time, right? So there's different ways to approach it. We are looking at possibly having some kind of a boot camp like some of the other companies have. Like Eaton has, and I'm just picking on Eaton, but there's other companies, right? They have like a 2-week or a 3-week boot camp. They send their guys down to, I think, Houston, Texas, or something like that. And they're down there for weeks. Just, this is our company, right? And I think that is super valuable. But what we thought of is you also have to kind of, before you put that investment in an employee, it's probably really good to vet them and make sure that they're not going to be like, hey, I just did 3 weeks out in the field and I hate this company. I'm hating, right? And so we're looking at maybe structuring our boot camp in a way that allows that vetting process to happen. But we'll see how the gears turn on that in the coming months.
And like I said, and it is different because of the economies of scale. Like I said, it's easier for Thomas to go out there and try to implement it at 1 to 120. But when you're dealing with 1,200 techs or something like that, it's definitely more substantial. I really like the pre-assessment because, as we bitched about it earlier, if you will, all these evolutions are cost centers that cost time and money. And talk about, oh crap, like I am being assessed. This is my baseline, and only about 70% at best graduate. Now you're putting some impact behind it. So putting that priority on it, I think, is huge. And to your point,
sorry, another note just to throw out there, right, is I like to say, for example, think about your kids, right? Your kids, we have public schools here in the United States, right? Public school, that doesn't mean that it's the school's responsibility to raise that kid. It is the parent's responsibility to raise that kid. And so when you start moving to like a big corporate company, you have to say, hey, no, the onus is upon the manager. Okay. It is the manager's responsibility to develop the careers of his technicians. Now, we are a tool in your tool bag, and reach out to us and we will gladly help you. That's why we build this content. We cannot facilitate the needs of every single manager across the company.
And therein lies the economies of scale and getting the buy-in, like you said, from management and everything else. And that's why I think this is a really cool conversation to see it based on the scale of the companies, where Thomas can go out and say, okay, I've got the ear of the CEO. I can get out here. I can turn and burn. Let's put some CapEx behind it. And let's execute. You have to follow the bureaucratic chains and fight the corporate entities that be, Tom, on that front. And so it's definitely two different scales, and I think it serves the broader audience for that reason. So I'm loving it.
Tom hit just. I love the point that you made about we are a tool. We are a resource. If anything, you are my internal customer. You are my client.
Yeah,
I'm a resource too. Excuse me. Because I also had that statement at one time that was, kind of a little bit of a throwback from production. It's like, well, all you want to do is your virtual, e-learning training classes, and I'm like, whoa, my apologies. I'm not sure where you got that information. You are my client. You dictate how I train. I can build material. How I execute the material is to my client's need. Now, I don't have the ability to schedule the workers and put them on or off jobs. You do. So you schedule them in for training. You treat training like a job that when you made that commitment, you keep them on that. I mean, if they were already scheduled on this job and this opportunity comes along, you're going to figure out how to fill this opportunity. Treat your training in the same way. Ask for that we implement it in a live, hands-on environment, and that's what I'm going to deliver because you're my client. Now, if you don't uphold your end and you're not taking your responsibility in scheduling and putting butts in my seat, for me to do my job then, as your service provider and training, then I'm going to resort to, well, then how else can I get this information out to them? And that's going to be through the virtual and the online. But I work for you. You're my client. If that's what you want, then you support it. Man, thank you. That was beautifully. Here are your tool. Use this accordingly.
I got one more to add to this too. So at Power Test, I did a safety presentation, and one of the things I said in that safety presentation was your employees only know as much as you have given them, right? So look, I mean, most employees don't go home and study, right? They don't, right? Most employees only know what their boss or their company has taught them at work. So is that enough? Right? Like, as a manager,
traditionally conservatively say no. No, that is awesome. That is awesome. Awesome. And kind of tying all this together. So we've talked about the OJT, and we've talked about the various e-learning and in-person and virtual and blended formats. What are some of the ways to kind of capture and leverage all of those together to make a comprehensive workforce development program? Thomas.
Well, I think if we kind of sum it up in describing it, you've got the multiple avenues and understand the strengths and weaknesses and how they play to one another. You know, first, what is your ultimate goal? What are the obstacles that your organization and your culture faces in meeting that goal? And then going into your resources and adapting. Again, in our world right now, doing the initial greetings to the organization, doing the e-learning modules and planting the seeds, then getting them out into the field and getting some on-the-job trainings and some observations and so forth. And then bringing them into, the classroom and for the hands-on to really now start to refine and mold that. But always keep those virtual training experiences as, I always look at them on the back end as your insurance company. Protect that investment in the trainings that you're doing. Always give them that ability to go back, replay, rewatch. Sadly, I learned this from my children because, anybody that has children and, lived the life of Disney movies, how many times have you watched The Lion King until, you have every single word of every single scene memorized? Repetition, builds in. So, again, there's many tools and many approaches that we can do to. I've worked for some of my clients, because we also do training services for clients, and they'll do the blended routine where, again, they'll assign the e-learning courses kind of on the front end. Great equalizer, bring the classroom stability is a good way to get new topics out there. And then they'll bring them, for instance, into a classroom, but now what they'll do is, what might have been a 5 days in the classroom because you had lecture and lab, now they're kind of using the e-tools as the lecture contributor, followed by the little one-on-one sessions with the instructor. So by now, what might have been a 5 days in the lab is now a 3 days or 2.5 days in the lab, but we can really now just concentrate all on the hands-on aspect. So I think you nailed it. You've got the e-learning, the in-person, the virtual classrooms, the blended. Those are your tools and your resources. Now you have to kind of adapt them to your organizations, your culture, your production schedules. And again, there's no perfect answer. What may work in, a smaller company like mine may not work on, literally we've got 15 different regions, spread across X and 2,000 employees, and we've got layers of politics and management. But again, the tools are the tools.
Right.
So how we work them within the larger versus the medium versus the small, there's no perfect answer. It's kind of a little touchy-feely and adapting, but it's the key message is there's not a singular solution.
Agreed.
There's not. It's got to be in-person classroom or you can't do training. It can't be everything is virtual. world. And so forth. Even with some of those virtual realities, how many times have I gone to now trade shows and some software vendor has the virtual racking the breaker? You know what? That is really totally cool. And the graphics are getting better and better and better every time I play the game. But am I going to trust somebody to rack a breaker on a live bus by doing this? They have no tactical feeling. They can't feel the tension and now what is cool is that one of the vendors actually programmed in some, okay, if you didn't go through your checklist and there was a mistake made, you get a big flash in your ICET and everything because you just triggered an arc flash. So there is some cool things that they can do, but again, that's not a singular answer. You don't go ahead and say, okay, now go rack live breakers because you took the virtual rack test.
What do you think there, Tom? What are your insights on the blending of the various formats available?
So what I've seen so far, I've seen a lot of things that work, and in all honesty, I've seen a few things that don't work, but a lot more things that work. I don't know how we got so fortunate. But I'll say this is that one thing earlier that we were talking about with the assessments and scaring them, right? I pulled it up on my phone here. I'm not going to show you, but you could do a pop-up, Micah, later. This thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And what it is, it's called like the peak of Mount Stupid, right? That's what they call it. And it's called ignorance. People just don't know what they don't know. And so what it starts off is you have a brand new technician. You've got like a curve of, this is what their actual what they think of themselves, and this is their years of experience. And as you look at it and they grade themselves, they think at the beginning, man, I am so good at my job, right? And then they find out, man, there's capacitive reactance, right? And so then they just the whole thing falls down, and they call this the peak of Mount Stupid, right? Because they just don't know. It's really just ignorance.
You don't know what you don't know. Yeah, it's ignorance is bliss.
So I bring that up because when we do our in-person courses, one thing that we really do, the reason why I think that they work well is because with that hook, bait, and sinker of getting their attention, like I said earlier, we'll sit there and we'll give them an assessment, right? And the assessment is intended to be difficult. And it's really sitting there to enlighten them. Hey, this is the kinds of questions that you are going to see on your final exam, right? So now the gears are greased, right? And so they've got that. And then they're like, all right, but they're thinking in the back of their mind, but why do I need to know this crap? They took them half the test and said, this is stupid for me to learn it, right? And so now you have to go ahead and you start the course content and you give them examples of how this is interactive and useful in your career moving forward as a level 2 or level 3 NETA test technician, how you can use this information to prove that you are better than your peers, right? And so that way you can get raises faster, right? And so then once you have that, now they know what they do, or they're aware at least of things, and then you got them interested, right? And so now they just have to figure out how to make the pieces fit. We'll spend like a day or whatever training them on that, and then we'll try to maximize the hands-on as much as possible. I think what we're going to do in the future is move towards front loading some of that to more virtual, not maybe a little bit of webinars where they watch them on their own to, just to grease the wheels and make sure that they're up to speed, and not say the same thing over and over and make me do a lot of virtual webinars. But, just trying to maximize our efforts and put the trainers in in front of as many people to make it as valuable as possible. Because it's not just about making and maximizing profit for the employees. It's also about maximizing profit and usefulness for the trainers, right? You want to make sure that those trainers can engage as many people as possible, as frequently and as often as possible. And then that content is consumed as most beneficial. So there's a lot of things to consider. I would say that the on-the-job training we've had, and I wanted to touch this because we kind of glossed over it earlier, but we had a person in our company 6 months, a year ago. They said, "Oh, all that in-person training doesn't matter at all. What matters, or what matters, is how they perform in the field." And I was like, "Yeah, but they're never going to get there without understanding any of it, right?" So I feel like the on-the-job training is super valuable after you've greased the skids.
Yep. Agree with you. I think that's very, very salient. And all of this, if you look at it from the macro in very simplistic terms, it's carrot and stick across the board, right? So we're trying to get somebody to get engaged and learn things that they may not necessarily want to dedicate that particular amount of time to. And then even at the management level, it's just another challenge in getting them to buy in to make sure their employees are done while managing all the expectations of everything else they have going on. So it's definitely one of those things that's well needed. And you guys, I am not envious of, because you have your work cut out for you. I think we gave a semi-idealistic purview of like the employees aspect, but I can remember when I was FC3 or FC2 Clay, the training was never going to come above going out into the haunch and going and celebrating the weekend, you know? So there's a little bit there, but I mean, I think you guys are incentivizing the right things. I think there was tons of at least food for thought to get gathered and some really, really cool insights. So I appreciate them across the board there. Thomas, I'll go ahead and let you for final thoughts. We're right at 1 hour and 5 here. So any final thoughts for the audience?
Well, I mean, really the closing to the topic and everything is, our learning never ends. I'm 61 years old now. I've been in the industry, from early days of Philadelphia Electric to present day, 38, maybe 39 odd years, I guess, in total. And I am still learning. So keep an open mind, embrace the learning. I mean, there are some people that just are like sponges and just eat it up and everything. Others, tend to want to push back and resist, but knowledge is empowerment. As Tom, mentioned numerous times, it's the way to advance up the ladder. It's the way, to get recognition, to get, salary increases, or, whatever your goals are in your career. But we are in a technology field. Okay. Learning, education, and training is never going to go away. We cannot stagnate. I mean, imagine the medical industry, if they would take that type of approach, we would still be doing bloodletting and leeches as, our primary medical techniques. Okay. We're in a technology world. We never stop learning. So embrace it, become comfortable with it, and look forward to it.
Love that. Tom Wire, what do you got?
I got 3 points, and I'll try to be quick on them, right? So the first 2 have to do with managers and supervisors, right? So they're first off, manager training. Training shouldn't stop once you're a manager, right? Oh, I'm a NETA III, I'm a NETA IV. I don't need to learn anymore. What are you talking about? Like, look, I invest in myself plenty and learn all the time intentionally to better myself in this career. It's called job security. I want to be better than everyone else, right? So, your training shouldn't stop, and it doesn't have to be technical, right? If you feel like you're good technically for your job, your business unit, how you operate, you don't need anything more technically, fine. Work on sales development. Right? Work on, workforce management, work on how you can deliver training, work on sales or production, anything, right? Manager training, how to become a better leader. I mean, all of these are super valuable skills that only get better with time, right? So, I want to throw that out there. And expecting your employees to, the second point is to do anything on their own. I mean, don't expect it. Okay. They only know what you put into them. And for the most part, and some, you might get lucky. They come from another company and they've invested, right? Why should they invest more than you? Is it just cheaper for you? Is that why? Like, come on, don't be that kind of bottom of the barrel kind of guy, right? Like, go and invest in your employees. I promise you, the good ones, I'm not talking about the bad ones, but the good ones will see that you are investing in them as a leader, as a manager, and as a supervisor that cares about them and their career. And then they'll be like, man, I really like my boss, right? So I think that those are 2 valuable points. The third, last, final point is from a individual and employee perspective, right? Your manager is only going to give you training that he needs for his business unit, right? So I'm not going to send you to relay training, even though that's what you want. You want to learn how to be a relay tester if we never test relays. That's just stupid, okay? It's me wasting money on something that it's like, why would I go try to be I want to send you to be a medical doctor. I know we're not doing doctor stuff, but like it just doesn't make sense. It's a waste of investment. So if you want to better yourself, do it, right? And I've had an employee in the past say, I don't think it's fair to advance him when he studies all on his own, and then I don't get advanced. I was like, look, if he performs at the job, at the function, he's going to make it faster. There are people out there that spend 10 years in school and pay for their own college degrees before they ever become employed with an employer. And that's their personal investment in themselves. So it shouldn't stop after college. It shouldn't stop, once you get to your employer. I mean, this is your career. You go home and buy a book on Amazon and just read a little bit, right? Watch some of my videos,
Nice plug. I like it.
There's plenty of stuff out there to do, right? And I mean, I told one of the guys in our company lately, I said, there is so much content online. You can go to like khanacademy.com and practically get a bachelor's in engineering just by studying on your own. That's what engineers do. They study. They just read books and study, and they practice it over and over and over again. And they just learn more content. This content exists in books that we can buy, right? So invest in yourselves. That's my point.
You're the outcome of your actions, man. That's kudos, and couldn't agree more across the board. And realizing not everybody's going to be wired like that, right? We're three, I would like to say, pretty achieved individuals that have done stuff, and you don't get there without putting in the reps and sets to make it happen, right?
Hey, so I'll say another side point that I think is kind of funny. I've said to people before, I'd be like, look, if you don't want to invest in yourselves, I get it. Go home, do barbecues, enjoy your life. There are those people out there, and look, we need them too, right?
Yes.
Your peers may advance beyond you, and you keep pushing the broom for 10 years straight.
And
we
that's
still
okay.
need broom pushers, okay?
No, couldn't agree with you more, man. And it's all, you're responsible for your own outcomes. I'm a firm believer in that. So, we can only lead people to water and not help them drink. But
that's right.
Awesome. I think this was really good. I took several key takeaways from everything, just the blending of it and making sure the carrot and the stick aspects of it and getting the training and making sure you guys are definitely doing things the right way. If anybody wants to find you online, I know where to find you, but where can they find you, Tom Wire?
I'm on my LinkedIn, of course. You can just search Tom Wire. I also have a YouTube where I take all my LinkedIn videos and I put them onto YouTube in case someone wants to listen to my sweet, soothing voice.
What's that channel?
It's called Testing with Tom. I know it's really corny, but I couldn't think of anything else, So maybe I should have named it Tom Squared and coined that before we did, but
No, man. And like I said, kudos to you. I know we put out a bunch of content together as I have with, I'm going back to Tom Sandri since we're at the non-name differentiation piece there. But you guys are putting out some great stuff, and the feedback we're getting is phenomenal across the board. And thank you for everything that you're doing for the industry. I think we need more of you, and I'm trying to push the bar with others and get them to come out of their little freaky holes there and put out more content, but we're not there yet. So thank you for both of what you're doing. And Tom Sandri, final thoughts and parting words, my friend.
Again, I kind of summed up there again. Keep your attitudes and your minds open. Accept challenges. Don't be afraid of them. Keep pushing yourself to that next level.
I love it. And where can they find you, Tom Sandri?
The wanted wall at the U.S. Post Office. But aside from that, also YouTube channel. Mine is my corporate channel, Vector Power. I just do a Google YouTube search on Vector Power. You'll find our channel and my monthly webinars. Also, Thomas Sandri on LinkedIn. You'll definitely find me there as well. So, reach out, say hello. Love to have you in my network.
I love it. And a lot of people don't get to see all the stuff that we get to, all the food, breaking bread in the background and everything that we do. These are two of the most, just humbly speaking to my public audience here, two of the most helpful and caring individuals that are truly passionate about the industry and just want people to succeed, and have been just awesome across the board. So thank you both. Hopefully we'll have many more of these coming across as we come up with more topics to have, but truly thank you for taking the time to chat with us today and putting out some more to what I deem to be extremely relevant. Only time will tell on the data on the background, but it was truly awesome as always, guys. And until next time, Micah out.
Thanks for tuning in to the Power Relay with Micah Clay. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to like, subscribe, and leave a review. For more insights, contact info, job offerings, and other content, check out our Linktree sites at Linktree/Micah W. Clay or Linktree/Southern Staffing. We'd love to hear any feedback. And if you know anyone we should highlight, feel free to drop us a message. As always, thanks to those who work tirelessly to keep the lights on. Until next time.